How do we respond to sexual assault? We respond to sexual assault by acknowledging its effects. For Tamar and for many assault victims, she has her world turned upside down in this passage. First and most obvious, there's the betrayal of her half-brother. Amnon invited her under false pretenses, preying on her own goodness and kindness. He attacks her physically and overpowers her. Twice in the passage, in verses 14 and 16, it says that he didn't listen to her. And after all this, he cast her out, rejected by the person who just minutes prior was professing his love. But there are other ways in which she suffers. Her trust for her father is broken because in verse 7, it was David who sent Tamar to Amnon. Even though David didn't know what was going to happen, he still was the one responsible for sending Tamar over there in the first place. David, likewise, who loved his son enough to visit him while he was sick, ignored Tamar after her rape, as far as we can tell. Her brother Absalom, who cared for her and in the text says that he hated Amnon, actually dismisses her assault, saying to her in verses 20, "Hold your peace, my sister, for he is your brother. Do not take this to heart." Between the broken relationships and the experiences she experienced, the fear leading up to her assault, the silencing of her voice, and the trauma of having her own body violated, her own boundaries so profoundly broken. The text tells us that Tamar felt two things: shame in verse 13, and devastation or desolation in verse 20. Sexually, our own capacity for being unified and intimate with another person is so closely tied to our bodies and our desires that to violate someone can disrupt every aspect of that person's life, from their thoughts all the way down to their relationships. I want you to think about this like throwing a pebble into a pond. Initially, you might think, hey, the only part that's going to be affected is that water, right? And that might be bad enough. But that action has ripples across the whole surface. Tamar is left devastating in the devastating wake of this assault. And for us, we must acknowledge the effects of someone's assault. The application here is that you need to listen. Be that safe person if they want to speak with you. Or speak and be heard if you have those safe relationships and you've been assaulted. When a survivor feels devastated or just hurt, we need their experience to be validated, especially when that violence is done by an intimate partner or an acquaintance.